So Ryan, thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
You brought us a few different things, but I wanted to taste this rum JM Terroir Volcanique. So maybe you could talk to me a little bit about this before we make a cocktail out of it.
Yeah, I mean, Rum JM is a very historical brand following the French laws, the appellations that they put down by the government. So this is something new. It's kind of a play on the classic French style of rum. We have a new master blender, and she's pretty awesome. And she wanted to have her kind of footprint on the product itself. So agricole rum has always followed those really heavy French laws, VS, VSOP, and XO, and so on and so forth. And she decided to kind of go off of that, do a little more blending, a little more aging structure, and play homage to the volcano that we're on. We're on an active volcano, erupted in around 1903. So she wanted to kind of play at the volcano as well. And so she's doing a heavy char
Yeah.
on our bourbon cask.
Okay.
We have a cooperage on site, so she's doing a double char and then double aging, so an original bourbon cask and also a double charred bourbon cask to kind of give it flavor notes you don't normally see on agricole rum. Something a little heavier, deeper, more vanilla, coconut, more of those like almost molasses style rum notes, but still that agricole backbone. It just gives it a lot of fun, new flavor compounds that are really versatile.
An 86 proof, I noticed. I was like, it's got like a slight more of a bite to it.
A little heat to it, a little heat. Never a bad thing.
No, no, especially because we're gonna do a Mai Tai, and you need something with like a higher proof. And we're gonna use this for the Mai Tai. But we started talking about it. There's a lot of what controversy with the Mai Tai,
A lot of debate, a lot of arguments, a lot of bar fights.
right?
You're going back to 1944 and Trader Vic creating this recipe, and we want to pin down so specifically what Trader Vic did and what he created. But Trader Vic wasn't trying to be that way at the time. He was working with what he had access to. And I don't think Trader Vic back then was, going to Southern or Breakthrough and saying, give me a case of this rum. He didn't have that ability. He was getting what he could get and using what he could get. And so I think there was some fluctuations in even the original Trader Vic Mai Tai. And we've tried to create a simplified recipe over the years that's been bastardized 1,000 times anyways. So I think people play way too much power into the exact Mai Tai recipe. But what is known is that blend of agricole and English Jamaican rum. Orgeat is so important to it, orange liqueur. And then what's important is not the Hawaiian Mai Tai or the vacation Mai Tai, which is the pineapple juice, the floated dark rum. These are all modernized, fruit forward, kind of cutting the alcoholic proof down and making something more sweet and drinkable.
Right.
But they're not the Mai Tai.
Right.
They're
It's
really
not meant
not.
for like the cocktailer, like person that goes to the cocktail bar and tries out like unique things. They're more like, I want something good. I want something that's cold.
Right.
On the beach. I actually was at an event and one of the organizers was like, hey, what's that foam that goes on top of the Mai Tai? And I'm like, was it just like a little bit of foam, like from a shake? And he's like, no, it was like foam. And he shows me a picture and I'm like, that's like Dole Whip, dude.
He must have had one in Hawaii. So Lilikoi, I think it's called. That's what it is. I think it's like a passion fruit they mix up there with sugar and like it's a heavy foam. It's like almost like a whipping cream they put on top of all the
Yeah.
Hawaiian Mai Tais.
It looked like heavy.
And everyone there like brags about having the best Mai Tai and they have the best foam. And it is what it is. It's become a thing. The Hawaiian Mai Tai is its own identified drink, essentially. But the problem is people go on vacation to a beach town or Hawaii when they come back here and they're like, yo, make me a Mai Tai. And what they think is that pineapple, sweet, foam. So when you give them a true Mai Tai, which is 90% spirit, the only non-spirit, orgeat, and then the lime juice,
Yeah.
it's a pretty booze-forward cocktail. So if you give somebody who's just had a beachy version a true Mai Tai, they're like, whoa, this is too much. What is this garbage you made me?
Do you do any sugar correction on that? Like, are you adding like a quarter ounce of simple to that? Because some people go heavy on the orgeat. I'm going to be using Liquid Alchemist today. I would say like a half ounce per cocktail of that, and it's not overly sweet. So like
Right.
a quarter ish of like simple syrup. You're right, or would you go half? Like, do you have a formula, or is it all depends on what kind of rum you're using?
It actually mostly depends on the orgeat you're using.
Fair.
So I don't think that Trader Vic had a very dry style of orgeat. I think he was using the orgeat as his sweetening agent. So I think he actually made a orgeat that was fairly sweet on its own, almost like a simple syrup, an almond simple syrup. I really think that's where he derived the cocktail originally, was to have the orgeat as the sweetening agent. which is pretty simple. You're just adding your sugar to your almond milk, right?
Yeah.
You can make your orgeat as sweet or as dry as you want. I would imagine his was pretty sweet, and now we separate them out. We say, okay, orgeat and simple syrup, or orgeat and sweetener.
Right.
I think he skipped that step because all of his stuff was batched anyways.
Right.
No one really knew the Trader Vic recipes back in the day. They were numbered. All the bottles were numbered. The recipes were done by number. So only one or two people in the entire company knew the actual recipe.
Wow. Okay.
And so he would say, grab, a bottle of number 9 would be a series of rums already put together. Well, it was agricole and industrial mixed to his particular blend that he wanted, or he had sweetening mixes that were, we now know they're cinnamon sugar and grapefruit juice, white grapefruit juice and sugar. So he had everything done by numbers. So I don't think he ever really put too much thought into the exact percentage for the public of orgeat, almond to sugar because he already did it. And I would have to imagine his was pretty sweet to balance out the alcohol, the lime juice. So I don't tend to go, if you use a sweeter orgeat, like it depends on what brand you're using, but Liquid Alchemist is a little on the drier side. You can correct it. I also think the triple sec is going to do that on your own.
Because I use the Pierre Ferrand for my
which is a drier triple sec as well. So you could add a dash of sugar because you do have 2 dry agents. But again, if you were to just make a batch of that, right, you mix your orgeat with your Pierre Ferrand with your simple sugar and into a bottle that was numbered, you wouldn't have guessing. You would just say, here's what you're going to pour every time. You're going to add rum to this. And I think that's what Trader Vic did across his whole entire cocktail program.
Yeah, I definitely need to make my way to some of the original and old school tiki bars. We actually have a great and emerging tiki scene out here.
Huge.
More and more every year, Straight Pirate opened up, a year ago?
Yeah, exactly. Almost exactly a year ago.
Oh, so that means we're going to have what's it called? We'll have an anniversary here coming up soon.
It was last week.
Oh, what?
It was last week. You just missed it, bro.
Oh, kills me.
It was just last week, last Thursday, I want to say.
I'm truly the worst at schedules.
Yeah, no, they just had their 1 year anniversary party. We're about 2 to 3 months in now on the new Glitter Gulch Tiki that opened downtown.
How's that?
Actually, really good.
Are we doing a blend, by the way? Do we float in some Appleton or something on top?
I would never float. Float's not a Mai Tai. I would go straight in the cocktail. The cool thing about the Volcanique is it has hints of notes you find on a Jamaican English rum. So normally, I think the original Mai Tai was an ounce of English rum, Jamaican, half ounce of agricole. I think you can go more of like a 50-50 if you wanted to with the Volcanique and a big, deep, aged English rum. If I can remember, I think he's an Appleton 17 or 18-year-old in the original recipe, which you can't even find. You can't even buy anymore. It's not produced. But he used a pretty deep, really aggressive rum in his original cocktail.
Why isn't the Appleton produced anymore? Is it just an availability thing? Like
they just don't make it. I mean, we're talking the 1940s, right? They've changed design over the years.
That's another thing is like the brand stuff. Well, now I just saw Chartreuse has an elixir.
They've always had that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's been around forever. It's just they couldn't get TTB approval to sell in the United States or FDA approval. They wouldn't disclose the ingredients in it because to them it's medicine. We like to make all this about partying and drinking and socializing, but to them it's medicine. And the elixir was taken with a bar spoon. It was taken with a spoonful of sugar or whatnot. It wasn't designed to be this new and cool cocktail ingredient. So they've had it for I don't know how long, but 100 years in France.
See, I was thinking that was like an answer to them, like, oh, we could do this, produce this, and we don't have to make nearly as much.
Nope. That's been around as long as well, not as long as, but it's been around for a long time as the base chartreuse. It's really just a concentrated chartreuse. It's a high proof elixir.
So chartreuse is also considered just a class of beverage?
Chartreuse is a specific brand of alcohol, and it's the only alcohol in the world that has a color named after it. The chartreuse green actually comes from the liqueur, and it dates back to a very common type of alcohol in that region, the Valais Valley of France. Everyone was making those. Everyone was infusing fruits, herbs, spices. Everywhere you go around the world, they were infusing fruits, herbs, and spices to make medicine, because historically we didn't have modern medicine, pills and whatnot. So you would go down to your pharmacist who would look at your symptoms and say, well, you need orange peel, you need cinnamon, you need cassia bark. Obviously, you can't eat cinnamon or eat cassia bark. So they would macerate them into an alcohol, extract the nutrients out, and then give you a drinkable version of medicine. And that's where all your Amaros come from. A lot of your orange liqueurs came from that way, that bitter orange peel. So Chartreuse is just one of those drinkable medicines. And same with all your bitters. Angostura, Peychaud. Peychaud was a pharmacist in New Orleans who created Peychaud bitter. All alcohol derives from medicine. It was all about, obviously it was a fun way to get your medicine. I'd much rather drink a bottle of Amaro than sit and chew on a cinnamon stick all day. But there was a lot of distilleries and families that were producing Chartreuse-style liqueurs. And some still do. You can still find a few in France. They're just not commercially sold, readily available. But yeah, Chartreuse has a couple. They have the yellow, slightly sweeter, a little more honey to it, I believe. And then the green is a higher proof, a little more verbena. And then they make a VEP, which is an aged version of both. And then the Elixir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Let's see. I didn't even taste it, so salud.
We'll find out together.
Pretty good.
So it's drier. I like a drier Mai Tai.
Yeah.
I think if you get somebody on the beach, they send it back. They want sweeter, but I think in our industry, people that actually drink regularly and appreciate spirits, you want something a little drier. You want that rum to shine through.
I kind of wish I bumped up the orgeat a quarter more.
You can always go more orgeat. I love
See,
orgeat.
I've had such maybe it's because I've been using Giffard for a long time too, and it's like you use too much of that and it can mess up your
Syrupy.
cocktail. Yeah, and it's because it's very sweet, too, like much more sweet than I would think the Liquid Alchemist is.
Yeah, so if I don't use any syrup, any sweetener, I like to do equal parts orgeat and lime juice.
Right.
Because I do think that the orgeat is the counterbalance to the lime juice.
Ah.
And you're creating like a lime sweet, simple with
Okay.
that. So I use the orgeat directly, and then whatever orange liqueur is going to up that a little bit further. But again, a good dry orange liqueur shouldn't really affect the sweetness level too much.
Right. Yeah. Good. Not my best, but I would say I enjoy this a
Drinkable.
lot. Very good. But yeah, and that's kind of funny is I do want to do a segment on here that's going to be like, okay, so here's 3 ways to make an old fashioned. They're all correct. But which one is which? Why do we use this one? Like, why don't we see the muddled one anymore? And I mean, I went from only not understanding the muddled one first when I was young
Right.
to I can't stand the muddled one to now it's having like a little bit of a resurgence where people are like, oh, I really like that like sweet bottom that's like built up and it's more like sweet at the base and you get the granulars.
Yep.
But to me, it's like I like a cocktail kind of that's the same throughout, which is why I like a simple syrup in my old
They're two
fashioned.
very different cocktails. Again, it's like the Mai Tai versus the Hawaiian Mai Tai. The old fashioned versus the Wisconsin old fashioned, which is what they pretty much identify it as. Wisconsin likes to use, first of all, they originally used brandy. But if you go to Wisconsin or old fashioned, it's going to be brandy every time.
Every time.
Oh, without fail.
Really?
Unless you ask for a whiskey version, they're going to get brandy. Second, they're going to muddle the orange. They're going to muddle the old basic bar cherry. And they leave that fruit, that pulp in the glass. They want that viscosity, that body. They're going to add a splash of soda to it as well. So it's a very distinct drink, and I think it's very different than the old fashioned that we're so familiar with. But it has its time and place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes you don't
I mean,
want
I don't know about the Wisconsin one where they add like it's like what you have to say sweet, sour, or because right they have like 3 different versions. It's
Yeah, it
like
depends
or
on how you
press,
how you
right?
want it made, yep. They almost always press it though. They're always going to press that fruit.
Okay.
Yeah, if you go up north, they're going to press the fruit.
Yeah.
And then that just got bastardized around the country where everyone just started pressing fruit, but then just using the whiskey, the sugar cube or whatever they're using to sweeten it with. So I think the muddled version is a blend between the classic old fashioned and that Wisconsin old fashioned.
That's fair. But and I mean, God, for the longest time, and like I went to Florida like a couple years ago, and that's like you're lucky if you can get that kind of an old fashioned at
Right.
all. You know what I mean? Now I'm not saying in some of those, I know like Tampa, and it's like they have a couple really cool bars like gin and it's G&T or gin and tonic, I forget, which was beautiful and epic. They had some really cool bars, but you have to go to Tampa. Like my sister lives in Palm Harbor, which is 45 minutes north, and they have cool beer bars and they have like breweries around, but the cocktail scene anywhere outside of the major city is just like really not existent.
Well, you're back into beach towns again.
But it's like God to me. at the end of my day, even if I'm at a like beach, you always want beer. You don't like you don't want like a craft cocktail. I mean, maybe not as many old fashions in Florida, but definitely like mojitos and like like
See, the mojitos again, it's a drink like the caipirinha, it's a drink like the old fashioned. There's so much fluctuation to it. There's you order 100 mojitos, you're gonna get 100 different drinks. They're never gonna be consistent. So I think a mojito is one of those personal preference drinks that, like, in my opinion, if I want a mojito, I'm gonna make it
yeah.
because I know how I like them. And you could get one that's super sweet, one that's super dry. Depends on how your mint quality is. It's a very difficult drink if you're not making it regularly and understand the cocktail.
Mint. That's another nightmare at bars. How many bars have you gone to where it's like it sits out and it wilts and it's dead and it comes out in your drink? I actually remember when we opened up Gatsby's, we got a picture of like someone just wasn't thinking and they garnished with the mint and they put a terrible piece of mint on it, and like that's the picture that shows up and be like Gatsby's, and you're like the one that like person that's like, but because of that, like I have nightmares now about like sending out mint that's not beautiful,
Unless you're using mint regularly. And if you're a Mai Tai bar, there's a large mint sprig on top of a Mai Tai, so you would go through it. If you're a regular bar, you're buying mint like once every couple weeks. That shit sits in the chiller, and then the bartender's like, "Oh yeah, I got mint." They grab this wilted bag.
Exactly.
Like, you can hold the mint. I'll take another drink.
And I'm like a mojito drinker. Like I enjoy the hell out of mojitos personally.
It's a great drink when it's made right. It's actually a very, very fast produced drink. I don't know why it got such a bad reputation. I can make a great mojito in the same amount of time as any other cocktail. You're not supposed to beat the shit out of the mint. You're not supposed to shake the mint.
Shaking the mint, dude.
It's the worst. I don't want a salad in my cocktail.
And then on top of it, if you're gonna shake the mint and then you don't double strain it, I'm like, dude, what the hell? I actually was a little surprised because EO in New York, their like most popular cocktail was basically a mojito riff that was like in a bucket glass, but it was just so much stuff that I was like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, man, like, and again, like beautiful ambiance, great service staff, like they knew what they were doing, and I'm just like, why is this a standard now? And when I was opening up 8, we actually had. There was a guy that was like kind of like he loves mojitos, I guess, and the cigar bar. They traveled around town, had all the cigar bars. They're like, oh, okay, here's what we like about here, here's what we like about there, and they're like, you need to do the same kind of mojito that they do at what's it? It's at the Caesar's Palace Forums, I think.
Yes, Casa Fuente.
Casa Fuente, and he's like, yeah, it's supposed to have it all in there, and I want you to shake it in there, and I was like, all right, and then. That's the other part of when you're opening a spot. It's like you might know what the best move is, but when it comes down to like who's making the call and what can you actually put on the menu, it might have nothing to do with what's the most correct one. It's who's in charge, who gets the final call, right? Like putting a cocktail on the menu with someone's name on it just because, and then that cocktail doesn't sell, right? Because you know what I mean. And you're like, we'll see now. Did we learn something here? Like Is this about money or is this about ego? So that's like a huge thing that I've learned about different restaurants is like take your ego out of it and just always put yourself in the shoes of the guest.
Give the guest the experience. There's so many people that want to have their experience. I mean,
Exactly.
You're not the one spending the money here. Your guests are.
Exactly.
Give them what they want to expect. I was in the business in the rum industry at the heyday of the mojito craze. So I was deep in the mojito world for a long time, back in like 2003, 4, 5. That was like, if you went to a bar, you were getting 12 mojitos. Like that was just what everyone was slinging was mojitos.
Really?
It was mojitos all day.
Wow.
MGM resorts. You walk into a casino bar, the basic casino bar, and watch 50 mojitos go out.
Well, I even remember at Capitol Grill, I got there in 2016. They still had like a mojito on the menu.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I feel like at steakhouses too, it's a funny cocktail that you order a lot. It seems almost, it feels right when you're at a steakhouse. You're like, oh, for some reason it's a good starter, but it's obviously not really on brand with what you would expect at a steakhouse. You're expecting
It's a great aperitif when made right. We overthink it. We forget where it came from. It comes from hot weather, right? It comes from places without air conditioning where you're smoking cigars, you're sitting outside in the shade. It's designed to cool you off. And that's a lot of cocktails were like that. When ice was hard to get, the mojito's not supposed to be this mixology cocktail. It's just simply gently pressed mint, some lime juice, some good rum, fill it with ice and top it with soda and give it a bar spoon stir. Like it's a quick, and the mint is an essence and the lime juice is refreshing, and the sugar pops out. It's a crushable cocktail for a hot day. It's not your 7 p.m. before you eat a big steak dinner cocktail.
I'm always thinking volume. I kind of have a standard. I aim for my cocktails to have about an ounce of juice in it, whatever that format might be, because I'm generally about 2 ounces of spirit. You know what I mean? And I'm generally putting about 1 ounce of a citrus, and then I play with the sugars, and obviously your modifier dictates, right? But like for my mojito, I'm actually doing like I almost always do simple syrups because it's the easiest to consistently know what I'm pouring in, plus volume. Yep. I get like people want like I don't understand the mouthfeel when someone's like, oh, here's a rich syrup, and it's 2-to-1, and then they put a quarter in, so it's like okay, so essentially it's just less volume, but they're like, oh, the mouthfeel, and I'm like, unless you're using like a gome syrup, I don't notice a difference in mouthfeel because it's like once it's diluted, it's diluted.
Yeah, I mean, you add like 4 ounces of soda water or juice to it, and you just destroy the mouthfeel anyways. So.
Exactly. So I never actually do any like if I'm making any kind of syrup, it's generally going to be a simple. And I do 3/4 of an ounce in a mojito, and I feel like it's pretty balanced and good cocktail, And then Francesco was the one that taught me how to make mojitos correctly. Francesco La Francone, and he presses it in the glass, and he was very specific. You put it in the glass first, you press it in the glass, you make the cocktail, you pour it into there, and then that like what I always show people after you press the glass and you're like, look how much mint is in here. Just smell this, and it's like this is all going in the cocktail. So
I pour the whole drink in the glass. I don't even think you need a tin. Put the mint in there at the bottom, press it, just gently rub it against the edges, add your rum, your sugar, your lime, and then your ice. Hit it with the soda and a quick bar spoon stir. It's gorgeous. You've got that bright green color in the bottom. It's not broken up. So you're not worried about the chunks of mint going up your straw or in your teeth. It's a refreshing, bright cocktail, and it takes seconds to produce.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a good point. That is a good point. And that's the other thing. Like a lot of people like mojito when they get it ordered, and I'm like, what's your prep like? Like, like sitting here like for this, it's like just to have nice stalks of mint, and then because I make those mint sprigs, you get all the rest on the bottom. Boom, you've prepped for both scenarios.
We used to make hundreds at events. I could do them in seconds.
Yeah.
If you overcomplicate it, it's going to take more time.
Now, what's your opinion then on like they always say shake citrus, right? If you're putting citrus in, shake it. Obviously, you don't.
I think all rules are meant to be broken.
That's fair.
Again, we're trying to put modern rules and thoughts on age-old things. We say always shake citrus. You think they were shaking citrus 100 years ago and they were making cocktails on their porch?
That's a good point. And when I was thinking about you building the mojito, I'm like, they definitely aren't shaking a mojito in like,
correct.
In
and
the
you got
Caribbean.
soda water.
They're like, push them out.
They want to sling them. They want to chug them. We want to overcomplicate so much stuff. I mean, a great point is the tea punch in Martinique, right, with Agricole rum. It's just a high-proof daiquiri. They make them quick. They chug them and get on their way. They don't even sip on them. It's like an afternoon espresso shot. They make them, they sling them, and they're gone for the day to the next thing they're doing. But we have to sit here and be like, oh, tea punch. All right, strong daiquiri. Let me make it. Let me overcomplicate it. Let me sip on this with my friends. No, it's like fucking chug it, have a beer, and go with your day.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like the longer I get in this business, the more simplicity is winning for me.
Absolutely.
It's like I enjoy cocktails as much as anybody, but honestly, I'm so simple that I don't need like to reinvent the wheel every time. It's cool to find a unique cocktail, but half the time it's like, oh, let's see what they did there. You know what I mean? And it's like it's not that it's bad. It's just like, okay, another one.
It can be overkill too.
Yeah.
There are some bars that are incredible and they do an amazing cocktail.
Of course.
They're super innovative and you just want to sit there and have one. And those are when you sit down, it's a nice dining experience or a nice drinking experience. You're paying, you're dressed up. You're going to have one or two with your friends and socialize. And that's understandable. There's other times you just want to drink. You want to like relax.
Yeah, me and you were at Sand Dollar last night and they have a drink on there's only one more day left, right? The Halloween menu. And they have an I Think You Finky, which it was on last year too, because I think it's just so good. And it's like a slushie that they always have on, and for the holiday what is it, Halloween, and I love that. But like you said, you're like, yeah, you can have one, and then you move on to something different.
Get a beer.
And exactly, and that's exactly what I did. I went from that to beer and then some whiskey. But man, and that's great because they have that like Oreo crumbled on top, and it's very green. Bronco Menta, basically a Bronco Menta
Kinda like a grasshopper twist.
grasshopper. Yeah,
Very
exactly.
grasshopper-ish.
And I mean, like, God, I guess I like grasshoppers because that thing's delicious. But
There's
after
nothing wrong with a grasshopper. Again, it's a great crushable dessert drink. It's an old time cocktail that fell out of popularity because of the '80s and all the sugar that added everything.
right,
But it dates back to New Orleans. It dates back a long time, and it was a digestif after dinner. Throw some good Bronco Menta in there. Throw some herbs in there. You can modify it just a little bit to make it modern with herbs and spices and not sugary sweet, but keep it simple still. Just use a better creme de cacao. Use a better creme de menthe. You got to keep it simple still, but it's a great. There's nothing wrong with just a fun, crushable cocktail.
well, I used to be like the person that goes like, oh, whatever you want to make, it's like, which don't get me wrong, if you're at a certain bar and especially if it's slow and someone's in a tinkering mood, sure, but it's like, well, we have all these menu items, right? And it's like they're like, oh no, make me something different, and I'm like, well, have you tasted anything on the menu?
Right,
And it's
right.
like, no, and it's like, well, okay, well, it's one thing if you've ran through my whole menu and you're like, oh, I still want a new one, but so sometimes it can be difficult because someone's waiting on their cocktail and you have to put thought into it. So you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna make them something original that I didn't just regurgitate. So now they kind of get put to the back of the line because I'm in the well.
Right.
You're running drinks and you're like, well, that one takes thought. So these are all mechanic. Just keep doing it. And it's like that one. I'm like, okay, what do I need to grab? So that was always, something I'm learning to embrace more because at Brimare, I swear now it seems like almost every guest I have wants a custom cocktail.
Off menu.
And we talked, like my boss there is Constantine, and he's like, dude, what? Do we have too many cocktails on the menu? Half the cocktails are custom cocktail. What's going on here? He's like, this can't be, and I'm like, it's one of those places you have this extravagant of a bar. People look at you and go like, I want them to make a custom thing for me in this moment. And you're like, okay, dang it. Because now I'm in the weeds. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, it's the bartender's job to read the guests and kind of like tinker to them a little bit. But I also think every good bartender has 3 or 4 staples in their back pocket.
that's true.
And you can realistically make every single guest that says make me a custom drink almost the exact same cocktail, and they're gonna be happy with it because they don't know what everybody else had. I think if you talk to them, and I think a bartender that's good is gonna have a slight conversation and say, well, do you like citrus? Do you like this fruit or that fruit? And you can do tweaks and modifications to even your menu cocktails to say, yeah, this is a classic on our menu. Here's a little modification for you.
Yeah.
I know you're a banana fan. I know you just went to Jamaica, so I added some Jamaican rum to it. You can do modifications, but you don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Speaking of banana fan,
Speaking of bananas,
I busted this out. You brought this over. You also brought Veras, which we'll talk about in a second. But I mean, a banana rum.
yeah. So this is a brand new project. It's been years in the making, but just launched here in the States. Clement Bana. It's actually made by Rum Clement. We are a huge producer of bananas for Europe. Martinique is. It's probably the largest grower of bananas for Europe. And so there are banana fields that surround our sugarcane fields at all times. And oftentimes they'll crop rotate with the sugarcane and the bananas to let the nitrogen in the soil regenerate. So there's always this.
Does one or the other do that? Like which does
Clement does it.
but like who does like I know alfalfa puts nitrogen back in the soil. So bananas put nitrogen?
Bananas put nitrogen back in the soil, right?
Wow,
'Cause
okay.
Sugarcane extracts nitrogen.
Sure.
Same with agave. All these annual crops are going to take nitrogen out. Bananas can go multiple seasons. I'll just regrow like an offshoot basically. So they'll use it to add nitrogen back in the soil, and they'll do some beans as well to add to the soil. But there's always this crossover in the roots of sugarcane and banana. And we always say that Clement Agricole Rum, JM Agricole Rum has banana notes to it. A lot of that comes from fermentation, very common in rum fermentation. But we like to think that the banana fields contribute to it as well. So we wanted to create a banana liqueur using that Clement Blanc base. And it took them a really, really long time to figure out how to stabilize bananas so they're not browning, they're not coagulating.
Right.
And so they just launched this a couple months ago. And I love the fact that the bananas are bright, but you still get that agricole base to it. It's very fun to play with.
What would you kind of start with, like a daiquiri build on this?
I've done so much in the last few months with it. Daiquiris are phenomenal. I've done all kinds of weird, fun shots. Just keeping it super low key and not trying to make it over pretentious. So we've done several different types of shots at the bars I've been hanging out at. I've seen some classic, cream based cocktails. All those old chocolate,
see. Wow.
banana, cream cocktails they did in the 80s and 90s.
Thinking like make a banana split cocktail.
Exactly.
Man, that'd be.
And there was a lot of those back in the 80s and 90s during the heyday of like TJ Fridays and frozen drinks and shit. There was a lot of those banana-y, chocolatey, peanut buttery cocktails. I think you can modernize those and make them a little more today, less sugar, better ingredients. But it plays really well into that.
When I think about those old school cocktails that were at like the TGI Fridays, it comes up here. It comes up on this podcast a lot. It's like talking about like that TGI, and again, like they made a fortune.
Yeah,
there was its time in the sun,
the niche.
But it's like now you just think like, wow, man, those cocktails. It's like the long drinks. Just like when you think of like Fat Tuesdays, you're like, I've lived in Vegas now since 2001, but it's like, man, I can't. I think I've had a Fat Tuesday when I first became an adult,
once.
And then that's it.
Yeah,
like you're done. Like never again. And I like slushies, to be honest with you. So it's like it's very
And you can make I've made some excellent full flavored slushies this the current era, but I think back then it was all about color and sugar. How bright was the drink, and how sweet was it? Because that's all people cared about.
And then let's go into Veras. I do like that bananas, but I actually am not so in love with bananas that I want to do a cocktail with it right now. But I do actually now I want to experiment with that as a banana split dessert cocktail. That'd be really fun. Incorporate some kind of chocolate like drizzle in there would be dope. But so now Veras. Now I've been dealing with Veras for a long time since back at Cut. That's when I first started seeing it come around, and that was in 2017 or 18.
Sounds right.
And I think it's a little softer. I mean, I'm gonna visit it. We'll revisit it right now. You want some?
Yeah, I'll take a splash.
It's been a while since I've had it.
That banana liqueur smells awesome, by the way.
Oh, it's just fun. It's bright. It's super user friendly. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff with it.
You were talking about go-to cocktail. Sex on the beach was always my default. Like anytime a girl was like, "Make me something different," and I'm busy, like balls deep. I'm like, Sex on the Beach coming up.
I love that kind. I think there's a resurgence of 80s and 90s cocktails and drinks and shots coming back. We have a bigger plethora of ingredients. I mean, you think of the back bar in the 80s and 90s, right? I mean, imagine going to a restaurant, the chef had like 4 things in the pantry, and now they have access to all these microgreens and fresh different meat farms, vegetables. I think that's the thing on the bar side. These bars now are stacked with really cool ingredients, and it just means more tools for you to play with. So take your fun, dumb 80s drinks and just upgrade them. And I go to bars. I get shit from bartenders all the time because I'll order around to like really dumbass 80s and 90s shots. But I'm like, yeah, but plug this ingredient in or plug that ingredient. Just like you said, the grasshopper, right? You use a Fernet creme de menthe or a Fernet menta in a grasshopper. It's a radically different, better cocktail, but it's still the same idea. You haven't changed the concept of the drink. You've just made it more enjoyable, less sweet, more complex. And I do that with like Sex on a Beach. I do that with Scooby Snacks.
I mean, I'm interested to try. Like, I honestly can't say I've done something like a Sex on the Beach with an Amaro in it. But I do like to say, like, Amaro is a secret weapon for every bar because, like, there's so many differences, and and like where one works, one doesn't. But wherever this needs more of a pastry note to it, this needs more of a medicinal note to it, and it's like go there first. Like,
what do you want? You want orange peels? You want cinnamon? Like, pick the right Amaro, and you have access to all those flavors.
When Christian was on the podcast and we were talking about the Trinidad Sour, and I, as much as I appreciate the cocktail, I hate the cocktail because I think I watched half of a bottle of I'm like, ugh. So as an operator, if you own a restaurant, you're like Trinidad Sour again, and you can't charge $5 more than every other cocktail for that, Right. So that to me, I'm like, man, it would be way easier to just use an Amaro, which I believe Christian said Giuseppe feels the same way. Giuseppe was the creator of the cocktail.
Giuseppe's quite entertaining to talk to you about that drink.
I've never spoke with him in person. I would love to.
He will not get into a conversation about it for the most part.
That's fair.
He's awesome. I mean, he's a legend in our business. I mean, I've had plenty of drinks with that guy. Well, I had drinks. He made them. He doesn't drink.
Oh, he doesn't drink?
He doesn't drink anymore. But he will not make you Trinidad sour. He is violently against that cocktail.
That's hilarious.
And he has good reason. You know, he's very specific in that the drink is so modifiable. So he's like, yeah, sure, pick a bitter. I don't care. Pick a modifier. You want rye? Cool. You want brandy? Great. Like, he's like, it's not rocket science to make this drink good. And, you know, he's got other drinks. He's got some other phenomenal cocktails that he also created. But
Kit, off the top of your head, is there any other ones that I would know?
you may not know them. The Duke of Suffolk, if you
I've
don't
heard
know
of
that
that. I
drink.
can't remember what
it's
it is.
probably one of my favorite drinks ever. It's a Irish coffee
Okay.
using Earl Grey tea instead of coffee.
Interesting.
So it's a little more lighter than an Irish coffee, a little more complex, I think, in the flavors that are rounded out in the drink.
Absolutely. I mean, especially if you're not a coffee drinker, or
Correct.
it's like, it's a lot easier to have a tea drink at any time.
Right.
Versus coffee is like specific time. And not only to mention the caffeine, but just like flavor wise.
Right,
you know?
right.
I don't want a coffee in the beginning of my meal ever. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Or
but
at 10 p.m.
when
at
someone
night.
starts off, and now you know how popular espresso martinis are. So it's like, I can't tell you how many people come in and are like, "Oh, let's just start with an espresso martini." I'm like, "That's how you start." Like, that's how I start when I'm at the next spot after dinner, you know. But
I can say I'm guilty plenty of times having espresso martini to start dinner off.
man, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm guilty of, like you said, rules are meant to be broken.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of doing everything you shouldn't do at a bar, you know. And so
Just don't drink Bloody Marys after 5 p.m. That should be the one rule we should all follow.
that's fair. But micheladas, okay.
Depending on the situation.
Ah, okay. Because
If you're at a ball game, sure, have a michelada. If you're at a pool, sure, go for it.
I forgot what I was doing like last week, and I was tinkering with something back here, I think, and I'm like, ooh, it's michelada time, and it's like 11 p.m.
I just think there's so many better. Again, it's talking to your guests, feeling them out, playing around with ideas. If you asked me for a michelada at 9 o'clock at night, I'd make you a Vampiro, which I don't think most people know what that is. It's a pretty popular cocktail in Mexico. It's kind of like a blend between a Paloma and a michelada. So you use tequila, you use michelada or Bloody Mary mix, you use squirt grapefruit soda. It's got lime juice. It's just, you can make
That
it
is
as,
bastard.
yeah, but
That thing's all over the road.
right, but it's made almost michelada style, and they top it with squirt soda, the grapefruit soda. I'm telling you, it's a 1,000 times better of a drink at night. It's a cocktail rather than just a beer and Bloody Mary mix or whatever.
All right, next time we're hitting a bar, dude, we're getting a Vampiro.
I'll do Vampiros anytime.
All right.
I love Vampiro.
For this cocktail, you were talking about, and we'll get back to Veras in a second, but you were talking about you like to use, which you have Supasawa on your.
I do.
There it is. You have Supasawa in your portfolio, which this is honestly one of my new favorite gadgets, you know, and I hate to give you too much credit but you really do have a great portfolio. That's fun. Like it's really cool. And this is just magic, right? Anytime you want like making a clarified cocktail without having having a clear cocktail, I should say,
Yep.
without having to clarify and stuff. It's nice, you know. And you said you actually you like it in a Negroni.
Yeah, there's 1,000 uses for it. It's so versatile. It's so fun. It was designed originally as a direct replacement for lime juice. It wasn't supposed to be this off the deep end craziness that's evolved since its launch.
Right.
It was designed as a direct replacement for lime juice because lime is inconsistent. It requires a lot of labor. There's a lot of waste involved, squeezing lemon and limes. So the idea was to take 5 different acids, a little sugar, a little salt, distilled water, and create something you could use as lime juice all the time. That's faster, it's preserved, it's stabilized, nice packaging. And it works great for that. I've had restaurants just straight up use it as their lime juice. It's a beautiful bottle. It makes great drinks. But the amount of applications that I have found for this after the fact, from very simple, I correct our orange juice with it. Our orange juice here in the Vegas Valley is terrible.
That's true.
Add a bar spoon of that to a cup of orange juice, and you have this bright, citrusy orange actual juice that you can enjoy.
Wow.
I do add a bar spoon to any Negroni ever. I keep it in the bitters cheater bottle. I hit a couple dashes. I don't. I know we can
Super
start.
conflicted, dude.
I know we can start fights on this podcast right now with a bunch of friends.
Oh, you're gonna get some comments.
The Negroni's not a balanced drink. I don't care why the Italians hate themselves. It's not a balanced drink. It needs acidity.
The
It
Italians
needs-
hate themselves.
I don't know why they hate themselves so much to claim it's a good cocktail. It needs acidity. Add a bar spoon. Surprisingly, make two. You can make two right now.
I was kind of curious about the clear margarita
Clear margarita too, because that's another great.
all right, so we got two cocktails gonna be doing.
I would do two Negroni side by side.
So
I would do an original and then add a bar spoon the second one. You would think adding a low pH bitter acidity to Campari would make Campari even more bitter, right? It doesn't affect the palate like that. It just rounds out all the citrus notes and all the herbs and spices that are in Campari and just creates a more complex drink that I think is more enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I love these kind of experiments. This is kind of what made me want to do this podcast in the first place, was besides getting people like you to talk about your experiences, which I can't wait to talk about, like the Fortaleza trip that I went on with you, which was awesome. And oh, by the way, vermouth wise, what's your thoughts on Antica formula versus like a Dolan vermouth, sweet vermouth?
Different drinks. I think Antica's just elevating the cocktail a little more deep, a little richer.
So which do you prefer in your Negroni?
I'm fine with Dolan. I'm fine with just a classic, inexpensive dry vermouth. Again, I don't think on this particular drink that you're trying to pull out the nuances of vermouth. If you wanted all these nuances, you wouldn't add Campari to vermouth.
So you have a love-hate relationship with Campari, apparently.
I have nothing against Campari as a brand. I have nothing against Negronis. I drink them. I just don't think that we're trying to overcomplicate stuff. Let's put the most expensive vermouth we can find into the most bitter liqueur that we can purchase. Like, why? What? You might as well go buy like a store-bought sweet and sour and then use the most expensive tequila you can buy to make a margarita. What's the point? We're trying to highlight certain flavors, not mask them. And Campari's going to beat vermouth every day.
So, wait, well, we definitely need to use your Spring 44.
Might as well. I mean, since it's here. Is it here?
No.
No, I guess we do something else then.
Damn it. Well, we're definitely going to use Alpine then. Or should we go more traditional and have some
classic
yeah.
London Dry? Nothing wrong with a good old London Dry gin.
Looks like I don't have regular Tanqueray, so I'm going to use Tanqueray 10, which I love Tanqueray 10.
It's a great product. It's citrusy, but it's a great product.
Too citrusy for Negroni?
Well, let's find out.
You son of a gun. I do want to do this. I do want to do this recipe as close to like the legit.
I mean, you have Bombay
Bulldog?
Sapphire. No, Bulldog's got a lot
Bombay
of.
Sapphire works. Or I have
Sapphire's got a lot of weird spices too in it. What else? Is,
Smith or Bombay Sapphire?
Fords too, don't you?
yeah, Fords would work. That's a good.
What? Is that London Dry?
It's not London Dry, but it's a London Dry American
it is
style
London Dry. Yeah,
version.
no, it's, fair enough. I always just called it an American gin, but this is a London Dry gin in America.
Yeah, because American gins as a style are trying to bury the juniper, like trying to go more fruit and floral. But this is definitely a juniper forward gin.
Which I'm all for, by the way. And get that juniper the hell out of there.
No, you want to get rid of juniper?
Well, Alpine, I do some brand work with Alpine, and their fruits, roots, and berries. They do angelica root and ginger. But my favorite thing about, my favorite thing about Ford's gin is actually how much thought went into the bottle.
They put a lot of effort in that
Like,
bottle.
and then if you peel off this, it actually shows the route of all their like botanicals that go in here. And then if you don't know this, and ergonomic for your hand, it's like fits perfectly. And then like even to where there's like a little spot for your
Right.
finger to hold there. Your label's technically supposed to go here.
I think
There's
when they
measurements
launched,
on this.
if I can remember right, when they launched this brand, because it was like 5 different SKUs in this portfolio they originally launched. They had a tequila, they had a gin, they had a vodka, they had a rum. And if I remember right, they used to sell or give away colored bands that you could put in that space in the center to identify your orange juice, your cranberry juice, or all your different mixes and modifiers. I feel like
Bar
just a
spoon?
bar spoon. Yeah, that's all you need is a bar spoon
So we'll do it in the right one.
or a couple dashes.
So you mean when they would finish the bottle and then they reuse it?
Yeah, take the label off because a lot of bars back. This brand launched a long time ago. I'm talking. I think 12 to 15 years ago. I want to guess, maybe 10. Bars would buy a case. They have it in the well. They would save all the bottles, and that would become their cheater bottle for all their juices and all their pre-made batches. And so I think I remember. I could be wrong. I'm sure Simon Ford, if he ever watches this, he might yell at me, but. I think I remember there's like a colored band that you could get, a series of colored bands that fit that perfect gap in the center. So if you were in the well, if you're in the weeds deep, you could look down and be like, oh, yellow bottle's pineapple and orange bottle's orange juice. It's a brilliant bottle. They spent a ton of time. This is what happens when a bartender designs a bottle.
And that was what I really did like about the brand, was that they're for bartenders by bartenders.
Yep.
I always thought that was like a really cool niche for them. But I use those bottles. Like, I don't necessarily drink the gin much anymore, but I love to get those bottles.
The bottle's brilliant.
They're brilliant. And that's another thing is the little things that you don't think about when you're starting a brand. And bottle design is almost as important as how good is the juice.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you don't have a nice bottle, it's not going to get bought. Like, period, the end.
There's a lot of factors that go into that, and you're talking different channels, retail versus on-premise. You're talking high volume versus a craft cocktail bar. I think when you're designing a brand, you have to decide what your end game is. That bottle's obviously designed for high volume, for turn and burn bars. They weren't thinking about retail so much. They weren't thinking about super high-end cocktail bars as much. They wanted their gin, their vodka, their tequila to be an everyday, every pour product, which is brilliant on them. But there are brands, if you're going to launch, I mean, CIERTO's a great example, right? CIERTO's not made to go in the well. You have a sexy bottle, looks good on a back bar, looks good on a retail shelf, not made for a bar rack.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of the way the luxury brands have gone, right? Like,
Most of them.
pretty much all luxury tequilas are in a tall bottle, minus a few. And like, honestly, they're not the ones that I'm gonna say minus those aren't luxury brands, even though they're great. They're not marketed as a luxury brand. Siete Leguas is delicious.
Fantastic. Excellent.
But it's not considered a luxury brand, right?
They also predate this modern luxury tequila thing.
Fair.
They've been out. They were the original distiller producer for Patron, so they've got history on their back.
It brightens it up.
It just brightens it up.
Man.
Rounds it out, brightens it up. It doesn't take away from the Negroni at all. It doesn't. If I gave somebody this and didn't tell them I added that Bartenders Supasawa, it's not like they would send it back and be like, your Negroni's wrong.
Right.
They would just drink that and go, damn, that's a good Negroni.
Right. I also don't know if Ford's was right for, like, if you taste it. I mean, I did very standard 1-1-1.
Right. And that's a whole other debate among everybody is what the proportions of Negroni are.
Do you like? And again, you said it's not really your cocktail, right? But you'll do this way.
Yeah, I drink, again, I don't bartend. I'm on this side of the bar. I try not to tell bartenders what to do too often, so I drink whatever they hand me. I just tell them to add a bar spoon of Supasawa to it. But proportion-wise, I mean, I actually like a lot of vermouth in it, but I love vermouth, right? I like the lower body, the lower ABV, complexity, and again, it brings that Campari bitterness down a little bit. But I'll do a 1-1 all day long. I'm not gonna argue with a bartender for a 1-1 cocktail.
I was craving Americanos for a while. Speaking of vermouth,
And Boulevardiers, same thing. I drink a lot of Boulevardiers.
I honestly have gone. I have kind of tapered away from Negroni because I was hitting them so hard for a while that now it's just ran its course. I'm just like,
It's still a great aperitif. It's still a great, if you sit down to a steakhouse restaurant, you don't want to quite get into wine yet. You're not ready for that old fashioned, which is usually post dinner. It's a great, good quality cocktail that you can sip on.
well, I think the day that I became a grandfather, I started liking gin martinis. Like, I swear, I never.
Yeah, but how's your gin martini made?
Oh, well, I mean, if it's just straight gin, no olive, nothing, then it's stirred.
Just a pour. Gin.
Yeah, but no, I like with vermouth. I like honestly, I like a Gibson.
Yeah. Okay.
And me and Matt Rose, because he's going to open Le Club,
Right.
which is right next door to Partage. Kind of like
Yep.
what I like they're doing is it's going to be a complement to Partage in the sense of you go there, it's going to open half an hour or an hour early, so that you could go and pregame there, sort of, and then you go to your dinner,
Right.
already walking on a cloud, and then you can also leave and go back to the Le Club. And he's really the guys. He cares so much that he's been spending like months on this. Just
Living there.
he texts me every day like, "What do you think of this? How about this? What do you think of this menu?" And it's great. But what was I gonna say? Darn it, I lost my train of thought with what I was gonna bring up about Matt. But when I'm watching him make cocktails and watching how much thought he's trying to put into it, and also staying on concept, because there's not a lot of French concepts in town. You know, we have a few Marche Bacchus,
Yeah.
Marche Bacchus, and then what's the one on the
Especially affordable. There's not a lot of affordable French because French can get really expensive. Guy Savoy and Robouchon is a French style.
Bouchon? That was the one I was thinking.
Bouchon, exactly. You know, there's not a lot, and you know, there's not a lot of off strip for sure. Marche Bacchus is a great example. But most
That's
of
the
it
one that's in like the Summerlin area, right?
on the lakes at Sahara. Yep,
I've yet to be there, but I've heard
new ownership.
Oh.
It's changing over in a good way, in a very
Okay,
good
great,
way.
great.
The new guys are a restaurant group here in town. I just there a couple days ago. New cocktail menu rolling out. They've simplified the wine shop, so you're not walking through this massive, you know, total wine trying to find a bottle of wine to take to dinner. They've kind of cut it back some in a very good way.
You can still do the retail there.
You still do the retail if you want, but you can also just grab your bottle and have that minimal corkage for you to go sit down at dinner with. It really is
They
a.
charge corkage. I'm not sure.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I honestly thought it wouldn't be if it's from them. You know, if you buy their wine.
I think they use corkage as a loose term. Basically, if you buy the wine to leave with, if you're doing retail shopping, it's slightly less expensive. Then it's a minimal markup.
Fair.
But if you want to stay and have the wine with dinner, they add a small percentage. But that small percentage and that retail experience is still far less than most restaurants mark up their wine.
And that's what I was gonna say, because their retail is actually like reasonable. Where I went to Siena Deli, also cool. I don't know if their prices on the wine were as reasonable. I can't actually correlate because they had some brands that I'm not familiar with.
Right.
But I do love Siena Deli because that's like if you're going for like whatever the best, most authentic Italian stuff in the Summerlin area, I love Siena Deli.
Yep.
Cherry peppers. It's hard to find spicy cherry. You can find sweet cherry peppers anywhere. Can't find spicy cherry peppers in most places. So I have to go opposite corner of town to get my cherry peppers. But you know, we make a dish called ziti corbelli, and it's very simple. It's chicken, pecorino romano, Italian parsley, olive oil, and that's basically it. Cherry peppers. Yeah, it's delicious. But yeah, so that's like a staple in my house for many, many years. Though I've never seen it anywhere, and you don't actually see cherry peppers in a lot of Italian like dishes. And I've worked at Italian restaurants pretty much like throughout my whole career, on and off, like Nora's. I even cut my teeth at Carrabba's. You know what I mean? So, and you know, it's funny. It's funny because you can always find something bad to say about like chains and whatever. But I've never worked at a place that I was like that like, and like no offense to Olive Garden, but there's like a lot of people who like talk shit about Olive Garden, and you're like, oh okay, and then they'd be like, oh Carrabba's, that's like Olive Garden, and I'm like, well, I see what you're saying, but I'm like, you know, and I don't know if it's just a pride thing because it's like, well, I work there and I don't want to be connotated to Olive Garden, but at the same time, it's like, man, they have like really good food, and I'm a pro chain guy. Like, if here's another example, so Darden is a big corporation. They have Yard House and they have all these other things, but they have Capital Grill,
Yeah, correct.
and I love Capital Grill. Besides when I worked there, like, which I loved it then, but even after being gone this many years, I still think like when you're going for, I call it an Applebee's for the rich, right? Because rich people don't go to Applebee's. They go to have a steakhouse burger,
It's very consistent.
you know, and you get exactly what you're expecting. And God forbid it's wrong. You're like half your meals comp. They're like,
Yeah,
please
yeah.
come back. You know what I mean? Like they're so grateful for your business. And that's kind of the way to be in service. And like, don't get me wrong. I don't like you don't, you get people that complain and whatever, and they're expecting comp. Those are the kind of people I actually try to do minimal for when they're rude, and you're like, okay, I'll give you exactly the bare minimum that I have to do to be appropriate. But then it's the people that are like, I don't want to complain about this. Like they won't even say their steak is messed up, but you're watching them eat it and you see them kind of like, and I'm like, like, what's going on here? And they're like, oh no, it's good. And I'm like, are you sure it's good? Because I noticed you're not loving it. Like and they're like,
you can just tell.
it's a little overcooked, but I'm not one to complain. And I'm like, I'll be right back. You know what I mean? And then it's like, boom, I ended another one fired, got another steak coming out, and it's comped. And they're like, no, don't do all this. And I'm like, you're the kind of person I want to do this for.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? A person that's like, but then again, I also say when you're going to a steakhouse, if you're paying $60 for a dish, please don't be afraid. Say, hey, this isn't how I ordered it. You know, don't be a dick. If you ordered medium rare and it's medium rare plus or just close to medium, suck it up, right?
Right.
But like, if you get a well done medium well steak and you order
price, right? I mean, if you're paying $40 for a steak, if it's close to medium, you're good. You're happy.
Right.
If you're paying $100 for a steak,
man, that thing better be salt bathed. You know what I mean? I want it to be perfect. I want the show. You know, if one steps off, I'm like, hey, I could make a great steak for $20 in my house. I come here for the show.
Correct.
I'm coming here to be treated like a king for $100 at a steak that I can make. You know what I mean?
You're paying for perfection at that point.
I'm loving the Supasawa change in my life. You know, like this is pretty crazy. Let me see. And no, I guess it's both. I was looking at the oils mixing on it. Pretty cool. You know, since you're not having any of this, we're probably going to have to move to just tasting a couple more spirits because you're not a big cocktail guy, huh? So let's get rid of this.
I drink everything.
I will say this: I've never met a guy that can hold his liquor better than you. He did carry me through Mexico at parts. I remember I remember waking up after the night at Fortaleza where they had the evening that you spend just on property and just drinking and having a great time. And I'm like quiet until I'm not, and then it's like out of nowhere I'm just like, huh? Oh, I'm late for breakfast. How'd I get in my room? Like, and you're like, where are you? We're here. And I'm like, where you were. Damn it.
I knew where you were.
Oh man. But no, that's something I'd like to highlight is, which is really great because I represent CIERTO as a brand educator. Fortaleza is part of that 3 distillery tour that you do. You take like 14 people or 20 people every couple 6 months.
In the spring and fall. It's actually, we do multiple ambassadors for the spring and fall trips. I think the trip I was just on a couple weeks ago was 118 people, I want to say.
Okay.
So the spring and fall are much, much larger. And then the summer, we actually do have the very large trip with 100 people in the summertime as well. I do not participate in that particular trip. I do a third intimate trip, a little quieter, a little more elevated. But the spring, fall, and then also the independent summer trip they're about 100, 120 people currently. So they're quite a festival. They're quite a crew.
Oh, it was a great time and it was pretty put together. But you know, when you're drinking that much for that many days, things are going to happen. I mean,
believe me, I know.
Well, even you, and again, you held it together the whole time. And then on the last night before we leave, you left your cell phone in your Uber in Mexico. And that was pretty intense. And like, you had been, like I said, you're spot on the whole trip. And now we had to give you shit because.
Yeah, that wasn't even drinking though, because we haven't even really started drinking at that point. We were headed to the bar. That sucked. It was sitting right there on the dashboard. I was getting the group out of the street because we're on a major road in Guadalajara.
Yeah.
I was getting the group out of the street.
And you're pushing people around. Hey, let's go.
I was like, this is the bar we're going to. Come this direction. And that driver saw it, dude, and he sped off. I mean, he absolutely, because I tried to stop him.
Really?
Oh, yeah, because he had turned the phone off within 2 blocks. He pulled off 2 blocks later to stop because I had to track my phone.
Wow.
So he had stopped the car, shut the phone down, and then took off again because we got the federales involved. Like, it became a whole ordeal that lasted until like 3 a.m. That was a nightmare. But, yeah, that driver knew exactly what he was doing and took off with that phone.
I remember you guys coming back, and it was just like a war story where you're like, yeah, well, we're in like these back streets of Mexico and we traced the GPS to this closed business and we're on the fence and then the cops pull up and I'm like, wow, a bunch of gringos,
Yeah, a bunch of white
bunch
dudes.
of Wados in Mexico on a fence, you would think that's the beginning of a movie. Like you're like, wow, they probably had.
Yeah, I mean the first truck pulled up, the federales jumped out. They didn't speak much English, and we spoke terrible Spanish. And so we're like,
that one guy, right? He was like your saving grace.
yeah, he was
one
our definitely, yeah,
Spanish-speaking guy.
he spoke enough. And we're like, no, the cab drivers took our phone, and this is where it shows this last location at. It was a female officer, and she was like, well, I'm gonna call the captain. And we were like, oh hell, that's
Dude.
probably not the best idea.
I
But
like,
all right.
I've heard stories.
So
of,
captain rolls up. Well, he's got multiple officers with him. They're in another big ass truck. The captain calls another truck. There's 3 federale trucks. There's like 6, 8 officers.
dude, I would have been panicking, trying to talk my way out of it, and just digging my hole deeper.
I was just laughing. I was like, this is where either it's gonna go hard left or we're just gonna go home with the phone. I don't know what's gonna happen now.
Yeah.
And we were showing in this courtyard of a coffee shop. It was showing the phone. It was in the courtyard of a coffee shop. And so we kept showing on the phone, like, and they got obviously the driver turned off immediately and never turned back on again, at least not for the months that I tracked it for. But we're like, yo, it's showing here, and the captain was like, yo, just jump the fence and go look around. And we were like, okay.
This is how I get shot. Right?
We're like, is this like a trick? So we're like, all right, we'll do it. So we jumped the fence. One person jumped the fence. Looked in the bushes, looked around.
You call that a torpedo.
Yeah,
Send him.
Yeah, we sent him in. He didn't find it. And the captain's like, well, maybe it's in the coffee shop. And I was like, how? Coffee shop closed at like 2 p.m. This happened at like 11 p.m. Like, how would it get into the coffee shop? And he's like, well, I don't know. Just bang on the door really hard, and we'll set the alarm off, and we'll get the owner of the coffee shop to come down, and we'll search coffee shop.
This is so bananas. Like,
and then my buddy
randomness.
Jax, who's the one that jumped the fence. Jax is like, you want me to bang on the door? The senior officer's like, yeah. Jack's like, all right. So he knocks gently, and the cop's like, no, like, bang the door down.
He said
he's like, I want you to set the alarm off. And Jax, knocks a little bit harder, and he's like, this is a trap, bro. He's like, they're definitely gonna arrest you for breaking and entering. And the cop's like, just do it already. Just bang the damn door. It didn't set the alarm, no matter how it didn't set the alarm off, and turn on the phone with her anyways, as the guy had taken off with it. But yeah, it was entertaining for sure at 2:30 in the morning with a bunch of federales fully loaded, like, ARs on their chest, and we're just like, I don't need the phone that bad.
Right. No, and 100%. Like, again, I'm thinking all the movies. I'm like picturing all the things I've heard happen, and obviously everything's embellished, everything's hyperbolized.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We've never really had issues with the federales. They're actually usually very helpful. They're very polite. I've never seen any real issues down there with our crew.
Wow. Okay.
So-
Now, is that because I noticed like they know you're like not you necessarily, but they know what your group's about. Like they know you're a tequila
They
tour.
do in tequila. They don't in Guadalajara.
Okay.
In tequila, they definitely recognize us. We're there often enough. We work for Guillermo Salza. He's a pretty predominant figure in that town. They know when we're down there for the Fortaleza trip. They really appreciate the American tourists, the American dollars being spent in that village to build that town up. So they're really, really good in the town of Tequila. I've never had an issue. Guadalajara, they don't know who we are. They don't recognize us at all. But still, again, they're not as sketchy as people want to make them out to be. Maybe in Tijuana, they're going to shake you down.
And that's
for some
probably
money.
because they're dealing with so many people,
Drunken idiots.
like there for drugs, there
Yeah.
for partying.
You're not flying to Guadalajara to get some cheap drugs, and I'm sure you could, but you're not flying there for that as a predominant
Right.
normal
That's not the
person.
reason. No.
They've never really given us any issues.
No, that actually makes sense. And it is funny that once you travel, you realize that most things, though I'm sure like those stories you hear exist still, but it's just like, it's not as common as, because they like people, like we were at, remember, I don't know if you were with us at this point, but we were at the ATM and a woman walks by and there was like 4 of us and none of us are small and like, wiry. Like
Right.
we're stout. And she's like, you guys should be careful. And like she's like a local Mexican woman, and
Yeah.
I'm like, we're not safe. There's 4 dudes here. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah, you got to be smart. If you're using the ATM, I like to have a couple guys like standing behind me that are buddies that that are looking around. But again, I've never had an actual issue, and it can occur at any time. You still need to use your head. You still need to have.
but
Your
and like
friends.
to the same note, like that could happen walking on the strip here. You know what I mean? Like,
Go to LA.
No way. I'll pass.
I'd rather use an ATM in Guadalajara than LA.
I'll pass on the whole LA trip. I've heard enough. I've been to Venice enough, and I did that like when
Yeah,
I was younger.
exactly.
You know,
I'd way rather use the ATM in Guadalajara.
that's hilarious.
No, I think it's all stories and myths and rumors and Instagram blowing things out of proportion. And if you're stupid, you're going to get arrested. You know,
Right.
They're not going to screw with you because you're a dumb American. You can't play that card. Use your brain, be respectful. I've traveled a lot of the world. I've never had an issue with any sort of federal agency or police.
I think the term that you said, like being respectful when you're out and about, like especially in a foreign country, it's like don't be the guy that's like I'm American, like please God, you know what I mean?
So I don't know why we're so loud. Americans are just loud for no reason. It drives me nuts. And I travel other countries. I'm like, do you not notice that you're the only people echoing down the street?
I don't know. I feel like Italians are pretty loud.
They talk, very verbally in groups, but they're not loud per se. You're not going to hear like 9 Italians a mile down the street at a cafe talking. You will hear 9 Americans at the cafe 4 blocks away.
Wow.
We walk into businesses and we have to like announce ourselves. I'm like, whoa, they know you're here, man. They heard the door open. Relax.
I'm more of the nature of like set a good example. You know?
Absolutely.
Don't get me wrong. I know I drank a lot in that tequila trip, but I was also very polite.
be polite, be respectful, learn a little bit of their language. It's even in France, same way. It's just like we walk into places and we're like, ta-da, we're here.
100%.
And the bar's like, we don't care that you're here.
And that brings up though that I do feel that there has been something lost in how people are treated at restaurants now. Like,
oh, for sure.
I think hospitality in general in like Vegas actually is kind of known for its hospitality, and I still think we're one of the best. But even in Vegas, it's slipping. But man, I've been to a few other places recently, and I'm just like, man, like this was supposed to be like a nice place.
It's getting pretty bad. I think hospitality is getting worse and worse, and we're pissed off and bitching about the restaurant business and people not coming in and spending money, and we're not seeing the volume we used to see and the tips we used to see, and it's like. You're also not doing the service.
You're not doing anything. Yeah.
Your bartender back in the day, man. He knew your name. He knew your vacation was coming up. He knew your wife and your kids' names. You walk into a bar now and they barely acknowledge you. It's one of my biggest. I spend every day of my life in bars. I spend 7 days a week, 8 to 10 hours a day in bars. I can tell you a good bar experience versus a bad bar experience immediately.
100%. Yeah, there is no one better to ask, like, what's your opinion on these?
I sat at a bar the other day. I sat down. There was 2 people at the bar. I sat in the middle of the bar with a buddy. The bartender was talking to 2 people in the bar. They already had their drinks. He was just having a conversation.
Didn't want to stop his conversation to help
Didn't want to stop his conversation. And you don't need to end your conversation abruptly because I walked in. What you need to do is make eye contact, make a hand motion, make a simple statement. Hey, guys, welcome in. Be right with you. Finish your conversation. But don't make a conversation. It took 6 minutes. I had my phone out because I was actually texting him at the moment when I walked in. So we were timing that. It took 6 minutes for him to finish up his conversation, walk over, drop napkin, say, welcome. Can I get you a drink? No one should ever take 6 minutes to be greeted. Never. There's that rule. There's old adages that we don't even use anymore. There used to be old rules. You would greet someone with eye contact within like 20 yards, 10 yards. Within 5 feet, it was a verbal greeting, hello. And even if you can't serve them yet, it's a simple, hey guys, I'm busy, I'll be right back. Happy to have you here. We've lost all of this. We've lost so many steps to service, and then we can't figure out why they don't come back again. We're pissed off. Oh, you came one and done. Well, what did you do to make them come back again?
100%.
Why would they want to come see you? And there are bartenders, don't get me wrong, that are incredible.
Of course.
And there are so many bartenders that you and I could name right now.
Absolutely.
That no matter where they're working, I'm going to go to their bar. Because I know they're that good and they're on top of service.
They just care.
They care.
That's
and
all it
restaurants
takes.
Are that way, right? Fine dining understands this. Walk into a fine dining restaurant, the hostess immediately greets you. So oftentimes a maitre d' says hello, how are you? How's your day? Make sure everything's ready for your night. You go to the bar top, the bar's on top of it. You go to the service staff, the server's on top of it. But for the general middle ground of bars and restaurants, we've lost all these steps of service.
Exactly.
And
I mean, even at, and I'm not going to name names, but like even at some of my favorite spots, it really is on who's bartending.
Correct.
Because there's one person that even if they're, let's say they're a good bartender and they're a little busy, You know, they get weeded a little bit easy, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's expected. Like, that's going to happen to a lot of people. It's like, not everyone's been doing this for 15 years and is like comfortable in the weeds. You know what I mean? But that being said, as long as like, you know, it's like, hey, I know, I see you, you know, there's like a lot of bars where they don't look up at you
Correct.
and they're grabbing stuff and now granted, you don't want to be the guy that's like, hey buddy, you know,
Yeah, you don't want to wave them down or whistle or
and
be
people
that.
do that
And
and
they do
those
it, yeah,
people
for
get
sure.
ignored.
Correct. And then they get more ignored. And I don't like that whistling, that waving, that
I
banging.
mean, come on.
But a
You
lot of
whistle at
times-
me, I'm going to give you like a
100%. But
Yeah,
I
well,
gotta
it's a
say,
weird look,
as a
like-
person who sits at the bar and watches everything, that's all I do for a living is observe. When I see somebody sit at a bar top in a bar stool and they've been there for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes,
hurts.
and you haven't acknowledged them, they almost have a right to throw something at you. Like, hey, I see you back there. You're not busy. You're making one drink.
Even if you're busy, acknowledge me.
Just an eye nod,
But-
just a head nod, just so I know that you know that I'm here.
Exactly.
So when I see a guest at a bar top and I'm watching and I'm almost laughing, I'm like, this dude's been here for 5 minutes and no one's even acknowledged their existence. When they do the whistle, the wave, I kind of want to stop the bartender and be like, what do you think was going to happen? How long did you want him to sit here and do absolutely nothing before something had to occur? So if they whistle the wave, I'm like, that's on you, man.
Yeah.
If they walk in 30 seconds later, whistle wave at you, all right, you're an idiot, get
Yeah.
out. If you
Now
stay
you're
for
getting bad
7
service.
minutes and I don't have a glass of water,
And that's another thing. It's like there are steps of service that I'm not saying obviously no one wants a cookie cutter, this that like, oh, here's our spiel, this is what we have, you know what I mean? But there's something to be said about like I have steps. It's like you walk in, greet, doesn't matter. Every greet's a little different, so it's gonna be like, hey, welcome, like great to thank you here. Have you been here? You having dinner? You having drinks? Okay, we're gonna do a little bit of both. Great. You set it down. Hey, while you're looking that over, I'd love to start you off with the water. Now I have now after like I have a minute or two to get the water, and I have 3 minutes after dropping that water. Or when I drop the water, I'll be like, any questions? And it's probably too soon. So now you have another 4 or 5 minutes in between where
give them a menu. That's the thing.
Oh,
So
first,
they say, oh, yeah, welcome. I'll be with you. They give them nothing. So now they're just sitting there twiddling their thumbs. The bartender comes back 5 minutes later.
give them
Well, what do you
something
want
to
to
do.
drink?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you have? If you'd have dropped a menu off when you said, I'm super busy, here's 2 menus, I would have spent those 3-4 minutes distracted by what am I going to drink and what am I going to order for food after.
And I'll tell you, having that water in front of you, like I can't tell you how many bartenders do not pour water.
So many.
Like, and I'm telling you, hey, listen, if you think that them not having water is going to make them drink more, it's only going to make them less happy.
And leave sooner.
You know what I mean? It's like, because they're going to think thirsty. They're going to drink too fast. They're going to be like, oh, I've already had too much. Now they're not going to peruse the menu and have a bite to eat as well.
Right.
Like, people are so greedy sometimes with, like, they want to get the nickels and dimes when I'm like, hey, think big picture here. I'm thinking of their next visit. I'm
Yeah,
thinking
and
of,
again, the water's an acknowledgement. I know you're here. Here.
yeah, it's a,
I haven't gotten here yet, but I know you're here.
it's touches,
Here's-
right?
yeah,
Table
touches,
touches.
touches.
How many times can you touch the table where it doesn't need to have to be a big task? But if you have to do 5 things in one touch, which is like, oh, I need to get their water, I need to get their cocktail, and I need to put their food order in because you didn't talk to them enough.
Well, and they're also annoyed already.
Exactly.
If you haven't dropped the water, so I'll be right back. Here's the menu. Take a look. I'm a big fan of the welcome cocktail too. It's not super common yet.
Like an amuse booze.
Yeah, it's moose booze, exactly what it is, but it's for cocktails. There's some bars that do it.
Well, that's why I said
extremely
booze. Amuse
well.
booze.
Booze. There you go. You can
Wasn't
trademark
just
that.
I wasn't just a uncouth.
You could trademark that one.
Right.
It's a great idea though. There's some bars that do it exceptionally well. It's a 2-3 ounce batch cocktail. Great for a bar that wants to get rid of some extra product. You know, you're all these bars bitch and complain. I'm sitting on so much stuff in the back. Make a welcome punch.
I mean, I have to say, Chica has things I could tell that could be better, but in general, I really appreciate the way their bar program runs in a lot of ways. They always have a celebration cocktail.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying it's everyone gets greeted with it, but if you're any kind of VIP or any kind of special occasion, you're going to get a champagne toast, like
Right.
to get greeted, which I think is very easy to do.
Yeah.
And slash prosecco. It doesn't have to be champagne. It can be
Just
prosecco,
Just bubbles.
bubbles of some sort. And also, I think that not enough people are carrying non-alcoholic prosecco. I think that everyone should have non-alcoholic prosecco. Your cocktails are wide open when you have a non-alcoholic Prosecco. Think of all the different applications that you could use that on, but also think about how many people like, oh, well, they're not drinking. Obviously, you still can't give it to a kid, I think, because it's alcohol removed. I don't think you can, but I don't actually know the legality on that. Like, you can't give it no duals because it's like 0.05%. Whereas
What are the legalities on that?
I know if it has even a drop of alcohol, you're not allowed to, right? Like even if it's a 0.0001, if it has that, you can't. Now, alcohol removed Prosecco, I'd be very interested because if you could give that, that'd be great. So that's actually something we should look into because you pour like can you put some sparkling water with some apple juice or something for them, or so that the kids can toast with the parents. Like that happens a lot, and I also don't technically approve of it in the sense I'm not here to tell you how to raise your kids, whatever. If you want that, that's how you do it. But I don't think it's good to like encourage your kid to start like cheersing when they're 12.
Exactly what you do is you're encouraging them to start drinking at a much earlier age than they probably would.
But I forgot who said it though. The Shirley it's Livia Lauro. The Shirley Temple is the first cocktail that we have.
100%. It's the first cocktail every kid has.
And that was like kind of eye opening to me. I'm like, damn. All right. Yeah. And I love Shirley Temples. I remember that. He has a lot of I love Livio, and he knows a lot about restaurant business, and especially because he started off in Italy, spent so much time in Italy, and learning the contrast between two cultures where you were in depth in the bar industry in Italy and in depth in here. And I think that's kind of why Francesco is so special because of that. And Dario Duomo, another one. And what I wanted to mention earlier, that we were talking about bottles and like having all these good ingredients behind us now. Dario Duomo is like famous besides for flair bartending, but and he was like world-winning flair bartender. But besides that, he's kind of known for being able to make cocktails without like juice, like everything on the back bar. No, I don't need to go get a juice. I don't need to go press anything. It's like what's behind me is enough to make you a lot of cocktails. And
that's very European. They don't have a lot of juices. They don't have a lot of ice.
Why not a lot of juices in Europe?
They don't juice them. I mean, I'm sure they have tons of fruit. They have lots of fresh fruit there. They have no issues with produce, but they just don't. Cocktails are an American thing.
I mean, that's for sure.
And cocktails really didn't become anywhere else until Prohibition, when American bartenders moved overseas and brought their skills there. But for the most part, when you travel through Europe or Asia or South America, Central America, they drink neat. They drink minimal ingredients. You look at most of the classic cocktails, the caipirinha, the mojito we already talked about, they're one or two things and they're just lightly used. They're very spirit forward everywhere but the US.
And that's kind of the thing though, right? To our original point about overcomplicating stuff, the cocktails that actually last the lifetime, like that last hundreds of years or 100 years, are the ones that are simple.
Correct.
It's not the one with the fermented this and I put that and this and
they're not repeatable.
I built and I spent 3 days on that. I'm like, well, that's cool, but that's not going to stand the test of time.
No, I mean, it's great that you made your own elixir and you infused this and you spun this out of it. Awesome, man. I'll have one because you put all this work into it.
Absolutely.
Can I go home and make that? No. Can I go to the next bar and order that? No.
And that's kind of the whole point of this podcast is I was starting to meet so many people that are like, oh, I'm not like you. I couldn't bartend. And I'm like, I promise you can. I could teach you how to bartend in 1 day. Like
Right.
you won't be as tight. You won't be as quick.
You don't memorize all the drinks yet. But.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like me and Christian were talking about. I don't care if you can't memorize every cocktail. Like there's so much versatility on these bars. There's so many cocktails, and it's just like, oh, okay, a dark and stormy technically has to have Black Seal rum. You know what I mean? Gosling's Black Seal rum. So it's like, who cares? You know what I mean? I get it, and don't get me wrong,
That's bullshit marketing,
right? But at the end of the day, you're like, if I order a dark and stormy, I don't care if I don't have Black Seal rum. Like, I'm not going to tell right, and I'm not going to tell you, well, should be with Black Seal, Gosling's Black Seal rum. That's and I do.
It's same with puzzles.
I want to get away from the pretentiousness of like, hey, don't get me wrong, a good bartender is great, and these the guys that go to the Diageo world class and stuff like that, and I'm mad that I again didn't pay attention to the deadline and let it get too close and then missed it. But which is my huge problem. I procrastinate way too much. But those guys that are going there, they're some of the best in the world. And And I encourage everyone to try to do those things and to show your love for this industry, you know.
Right.
But I want to get away from the we do like we're so good at this, like the twisted, like everything that people are doing are showing like how impossible it is to bartend. Well, let me make this look impossible. Let me make this look hard, and I want to make it look as easy as it is.
There should only be a few bars for that. Those should be
Exactly.
destination bars. And there are some bars that do that extremely well.
Of course.
And they are definitely destinations. And when I go to those cities, I'm seeking out that bar for that experience. I'll usually have a night out. I'll go to a nice dinner, make a reservation at that bar to try some of their really crazy signature cocktails. But that's not an
Francesco's
everyday thing.
place in Chicago. He just opened up. I'm dying to go there and check out. That's like I would go to Chicago. Or no, it's Boston. Boston.
There's a list of spots I could give you that are like that, but there's usually one per town, and you got to Google it and find out like what the best cocktail bar is.
Then you come here, and like every single place wants to have a speakeasy now. And you're like,
yeah, I know.
Like, all right, are we kind of getting away from the whole idea? Like,
I mean, there never really was a speakeasy if you have an Instagram page and a
right.
There's a new. I mean, and they're fun. I have some friends that have them. They're kitschy. All depends on how you play off it and how serious you get with it. There's a new one show up in the Arts District. It's awesome.
What's that one?
The Craft Creamery Speakeasy.
Oh, I've heard about it.
It's the lady that owns it, Emma. She's been around her industry forever. She's super talented. Again, I think she plays into it really well, where she's not trying to be annoyingly speakeasy.
But that's also more of what I expect of a speakeasy, like an ice cream parlor.
Yeah, you go through the ice cream freezer.
Or even at Resorts World, here, Kitty Kitty. I love that idea that it's like literally hidden behind a wall.
Right.
And you but when it's just like, oh, in that back room, that's our speakeasy. And you're like, oh, it's just another bar.
Or bars that just have the front door.
That's kind of what I'm
goes
talking
into it. They call it a speakeasy. I'm like,
Yeah, you're like, oh.
There's a street sign.
You're like, it's not even rustic. It's like
sign out
it's
for
not
it.
even
Tell me how to get
classy.
here.
It's like not that they're not. They're always look ornate and nice. But it's like when I have a speakeasy, I want it to be like knock twice, like I want it to be kind of that's the gimmicky thing I do want. Is it hidden behind a wall?
Hard place, right? Because you say that. You say, I want it to be hard to find. I want it to be a secret password to get in. And then as a bar owner, you're like, okay, well, now I'm not making money because no one knows where the hell I'm at. So you start pushing the envelope, trying to get more people in so you can keep your doors open and pay your staff. And then where's that fine line where you flip to like, all right, fuck it, we're just a regular bar now.
Or laundry room downtown?
Yeah, laundry room's a great example. If they were a true speakeasy, they'd have 2 guests a night. And they wouldn't have a waiting list, and you wouldn't have a text.
You don't think that there's like an inner circle? Like, think about the following that Hard Hat has right now.
Yeah.
Right. And how everyone's like, oh, you gotta go there. Gotta go to Hard Hat, and you go there, and it's cool. There's nothing wrong with it.
It's a fun hangout.
But it's pretty
straightforward.
It is
basic.
So, but it's a cult following. Like people that are locals
it's a current fad. I like Hard Hat. I like the guys there. They're all good dudes. I go there for a beer and a shot. Again, it's not a cocktail bar. I wouldn't go there and ask the bartenders to make me some crazy.
Isn't that funny
cocktail.
too?
Like Tommy Rockers, dude. That place has been a staple forever.
Which is ironic, because the bartender there is one of the best bartenders ever known.
Ken on Graveyard
Ken Hall
is literally one of the best bartenders I've ever seen. And I mean, when you watch him have an entire they get busy there on their Graveyard to an nth degree, and he'll have at a divey bar, it's like boom, 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 and you just watch his wrist
40 people
crushing.
Well, and that goes back to our early conversation about people just being terrible at service. I watch bartenders now at these bars that have 9, 10 people sitting down, and they take one drink order. They get the ice for their one glass. I'm like, man, if you can't make 3 or 4 cocktails at a time, this is the wrong industry for you.
Though I could work on my memory a little bit, because I will say, if I get 4 cocktails, I'm busy, I'm having fun, and then someone else throws hey, I also, and I'm like, I want to know it. And I know that there's a lot of people that are very good at remembering all that, but I'm like, I'm sorry, if I get another one, I'm going to have to ask you again.
I'll forget one of these.
So let's hold up.
If there's a group of 4, I see bartenders all the time, a group of 4 that walk up, oh, what do you have? The guy orders a drink, and then they're like, okay. I'm like,
One at a time?
oh, it happens all the time.
Oh.
It happens all, and it drives me nuts.
That's crazy.
It drives me absolutely nuts.
Here
Like,
you go.
and they're like, okay, they go get the one rocks glass, scoop of ice. They start making. I'm like, dude, you are the slowest person I've ever met. Like, if you're gonna be this pathetically slow, offer us all a beer so I have something to sip on while I watch you do nothing.
Yeah.
Like, it just drives me nuts. We've lost the service industry so badly where find an old-timey bartender, go to any old-timey saloon, watch that bartender work. They will get 15 orders, crack 9 beers, make a couple drinks, and everything's served.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speed your ass up.
Man, I swear, like, that's kind of like the consistency right now, or that's the thing that I think we should be hitting on the most is like getting Vegas back to like what people expect, and I feel bad because I've been a part of several openings in the last few years, and the biggest thing is hiring. It's the hardest part of it. Like, it's not like building a venue has its own like ups and downs, and oh, you're dealing with this builder, or they messed this up, they didn't put the shelves in yet, whatever. That's a nightmare. But the real nightmare that's like always the problem at restaurants is the hiring. Finding and then even if you find someone good, they're not consistent. They'll have excuses. It's so hard to staff a restaurant now,
especially on the strip. We're getting a lot better off strip. We're getting a lot.
Well, I think that's what's happening.
Spots. Yeah, because people are tired of the strip has created its own hurdles with the union and the
union.
And just also the strip not giving a shit because you have higher ups that all they care about is maximizing profit. They're giving you minimal tools. They're buying big name brands. They're not giving you fresh juice.
And I get the big name brands part. Like, the thing that people don't understand is that it's unfair to the small brands because you could have a great juice. Like, you have a lot of great product. And I mean, I don't know how much support everyone has, but if they don't have money behind the brand, breaking through the threshold of, well, why is a bar going to pick this up? Why is a bar going to put it on a cocktail menu? It normally comes down to money. Like,
on the strip.
Well, yeah.
I don't know if that's true around the rest of the U.S. except for major metro markets.
Oh, I'm only speaking to Vegas.
Yeah, it's on the strip here, and there's this weird mentality where these buyers, these owners, these bar managers are like, I deserve pay to represent your brand. And that's a new thing. I've been in this industry 21 years here in Vegas. It's a relatively new thing, and it's super frustrating. And don't get me wrong, you could make an amazing cocktail menu from Diageo brands. They do have really good stuff. Same with Pernod, Brown Forman, a couple others, some not so much. But if you dug into Diageo's brands, you could find some quality brands. They have, like, we just use Tanqueray 10, right? Could use Tanqueray 10, right? Amazing product. They do have good brands. What drives me nuts is when you walk into a bar and you can just see that it was directly paid for. I should not be able to read a menu and be like, oh yeah, Diageo got you guys some promo models, didn't they? Did you guys get your bucket of tchotchkes to give away for this cocktail menu?
Tchotchkes.
Because I walk into a high-end place and all I see is Crown Peach and Ciroc watermelon. I'm like, well, come on, guys. Like, you're serving an $80 steak. You went to the farm. You met the farmer. You picked your cows out. You're serving me this $80 ribeye that you rave about, and then a fucking Crown Peach cocktail?
Yeah.
Like, you don't see the disconnect here? You don't see the fact that I'm a person who came to you for an $80 steak, and you think I'm okay with a TGI Fridays cocktail that you put a fancy garnish on? Like, there's a weird disconnect in our industry between the bar and the kitchen. If you're at a shitty restaurant, I expect mediocre cocktails. I don't walk into a chain restaurant and, like, make me the most clarified badass.
You're not expecting a badass. You're just hoping consistent and quality service.
When I'm at a place that I know has an amazing kitchen, amazing chef team,
yeah,
the bar should reciprocate that. The bar should not be looking to get dollars from brands. They should be looking to find the best brands they can find for the best price point they can get them at and make their money off of the quality of the drink. I shouldn't have to pay you as a brand to use my product that we already spent so much money making the best we could and bringing to you. It's a mind-blowing concept that just relatively new. I mean, I tell people, like, there's a lot of different facets to this, but when I'm a small brand and I bring you to this product, right? And you look at me and you go, what can you give me in return? Well, what I can give you is profit. When you use my product, Your guests are going to have a great drink, a great experience. They're probably going to order a second one, tell their friends, and come back. You just made $20 on this cocktail, of which the drink, if you're good at your job, costs you $2 or $3. That's $17 in profit. They can go to all the other things you have cost-wise. That's what I'm bringing to you. If you're a good quality product as a bar, you should be able to make your money off of your drinks. If I have to pay you as a brand, it's because I have a shit brand nobody wants, and I need to find a way to make you use it. And there's a lot of brands that exist on that. There's a lot of brands that just don't sell unless they give money away.
And that's kind of what I was getting. So I got called out. I went on the news and I was talking about CIERTO tequila, additive free, blah, blah, blah. And, I posted on social medias and stuff, and someone responds with an old picture that was from a different venue I'd opened, and I was running their cocktail program, and I'm not the owner. So the owner tells me what brands they want represented. And it's normally, especially where I was, I don't know if it even still exists anymore, but the owners, they were trying to make money and they were struggling, and it was in a weird spot. And the last thing they can do is be artists with spirits. So they were like, okay, well, whoever's going to guarantee guests coming in, and they're like, it's illegal, for the record, it's illegal to give money. Like if I work for CIERTO, I can't say, hey, CIERTO's going to come in and we're going to give you cash if you pick up our product. That's illegal. It's not illegal to know that your brand is at a bar and bring in 10 people with you to go spend money on your drinks and food, knowing that your brand is there. That's kind of how it works. And when you need business, the last thing you can do is do these brands that have like no one that's going to help you bring in people. So when, let's say, Casamigos comes in and they're like, oh, we'll make sure we come in like 2-3 times this month. You know what I mean? And it's just like, all right, well, how do I compete with that as a brand that can't do that? Like,
Also, I asked all these bar managers, do you ever think about why they come and give you all that money? Do you ever think if your brand was so good that everybody wanted it, right, and it was selling organically, you wouldn't be offering money up? If you're a brand showing up and knocking on a bar door and be like, use my brand, I'll spend $5,000 a quarter here, what's wrong with the brand? What you're telling me indirectly is that I have a brand that consumers don't actually want to drink. I have a brand that customers aren't asking for, probably don't like, not intrigued with, and yet I need you to pour it to them anyways. And to make you pour it to these guests that didn't ask for this, I'm going to give you money.
Yeah.
Because I have really good brands. I've never had to tell a bar manager, hey, can you make your guests drink this?
No.
Never once.
Honestly, when I think of rum in this town, I don't think anyone represents more good rums than you. It's actually hard to find. It's hard to find great art agricole or any kind of unique rums. It's easy to find white rums.
Right.
You can find a million white rums.
Right.
Everyone has them. But now when you get into the nerd, the cool stuff, you gotta know someone like you that's like, okay, here, I'll show you this, I'll show you that.
Stands it all.
And I'm grateful for that, for sure. I wanted to show you this because you might not have tasted this. This is the Reserve collection of CIERTO. Okay. So this is the only one I still want to find out more facts about, because they said this is the blend of the distillates between copper pot and their column still is different. And it's rested a little bit longer in stainless steel, but otherwise it's pretty, like, I was curious at how much different this is for comparison's sake.
On the base.
Right.
I know that family very well. I know I'm very close with the owner of this brand, or the distillery, I should say, not the brand.
Yeah, the distillery is La Tequilena.
Yep.
And it's a NOM 1146.
Correct, which is the Don Fulano distillery. And they've always had a copper pot still. They've had many copper pots. They always have a column still. And they're very proud of their column still. They're not ashamed of it. They're not trying to hide it. They like what column still does to tequila. So there's a comparison
between the two. Now, it's easier to find the differences in the age statements because the Fonseca library has like up to like
massed. It's amazing.
It's ridiculous. So
it's
now
incredible.
They're doing kind of what the Louis thing is, like where they drop in little bits of those old and they blend it into the batch.
Yeah, and they've always done that to get the flavor they want. They're probably one of the best libraries of expressions I've ever seen in the tequila business, and they know every single barrel, every batch, and what the flavor profile is. So, when they're making a blend, they might need a little more baking spice. They might need a little more cinnamon or nutmeg or vanilla, and so they'll go to this log book, find a batch that had that heavy note, and add a little bit into the batch that they're producing for that run. So it's a pretty impressive process, and on the age, it really pronounces it. On the Blanco, there's a lot less you can do because stainless steel
Exactly
doesn't do a whole lot. So I think on this, like the biggest piece, and I have to ask them about it when I talk to them next.
Yeah, I was curious to see the difference. Again, I visited a lot. There is a difference. It's much more pronounced on the age statement ones.
My only guess, and they might correct me, they might text me after this, but my only guess would be they're using less column still. And they pull pretty low in their column still anyway, so it has a lot of body to it.
Right.
But it's still lighter than a...
There's a lot of intention. They actually age it separately.
Well, age or rest. If there's no barrel, they're not...
Well,
really
not on this, but I'm saying like when they're aging their repo.
Right.
There's a column still barrel and there's a pot still barrel.
Yeah, they're very good at having the different pieces all separated out and then blending together.
And I find that to me that makes the most sense for honing in on a specific, because you're really the more you break things down into its individual parts, the more you can actually build that.
And there's other facets they could be doing. I don't know what they're doing on CIERTO. I could find out, but they could be using a bagazo fermentation versus non-bagazo fermentation.
Will you tell me about that? I know we're running out of time, but I want to hear about bagazo fermentation. I've never heard that term.
Bagazo, it's very, very straightforward. So when you crush your agaves, whether it's via roller mill or tahona, you have all the fibers, the leftover agave, right? You've squeezed the sugar off of the agave to create a fermentation vat.
Yeah.
But you have the leftover fibers. There's a lot of ways you can handle those fibers, and there's a lot of influences from those. So when you're like 100% tahona crush, like Fortaleza is, that contact time between the bagazo fibers and the fermentation sugar is long. It's 4 hours. And then you remove the bagazo, you have just the juice that you go into fermentation with. You can also take those bagazo leftover fibers and add them on top of the fermentation tank and allow the fermentation to occur with bagazo fibers, which is going to give you some of those grassy straw notes because the entire time it's fermenting is touching them.
Okay.
So some brands like to go completely bagazo free from fermentation. Some like to add bagazo in. Some have 3 sets of rollers in their roller mill, which means you're very quickly stripping off the fibers. Some have 6, 7, 8.
Does the speed matter?
Absolutely.
Flavor?
It all matters. And everything you adjust in this process is going to change your final product.
So getting it out, extracting it faster.
The less contact time you have with the bagazo, the less grassy straw notes you're usually going to have.
What do you feel about those notes? Do you like those in your tequila, or
I do not.
Okay.
But it's nothing wrong with it. I do not like bagazo fermentation because I like the agave, the brightness, the citrus notes to shine through. But again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with brands that do bagazo fermentation that have more of that hay, earthy note to the final product. It's all preference. I just like bright agave forward spirits.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, now I'm getting to the point where I obsess over neat spirits, but I'm leaning. It's so funny who you're around and what you're doing. It dictates, for me at least, what I drink. I used to be a Negroni guy. Now I'm not so much. I still enjoy them, but it's not my order anymore.
Right.
And honestly, it's most of the time it's a neat whiskey or a neat tequila.
Mm-hmm.
But I've gone like people say, oh, what's your favorite cocktail? And I would say either a Mai Tai, traditional, like a Trader Vic's Mai Tai, or depending if I see fresh ginger juice on the bar, I do a penicillin.
Great drink.
I think it really shows the quality, like the skills of a bartender is a penicillin.
Yeah.
But so because
shows
that's
the
a constant
ingredients
question as a bartender. You get asked, "What do you drink? What do you like?" And I'm like, "Who am I with? What am I doing?"
What's the situation?
You probably don't know this, but I drink a ton of wine.
Right.
Like if I'm having dinner, I can't even imagine a cocktail. Like I want wine with my dinner.
Right, right.
You know, before and after, totally different story.
Well, what's my dinner too? If I'm at a steakhouse, I want wine. If I'm at a pub grabbing a burger, I want a beer.
Yeah, well, yeah.
all a situation
Touche.
and
If it's if it's something like that, burger, I honestly, I don't even want alcohol. I want a Coca-Cola.
Or that.
I am like I know
Which is
like people are
basically a
like
non-alcoholic.
soda, but it's like
If you look at the original Coca-Cola, it's all these herbs, fruits, spices. It's an original.
well, cocaine and wine.
Cocaine and not wine.
It was wine. It was wine
Coca
originally.
leaf, coca leaf, and cola nut.
Yeah, but it was a wine. It was wine. Then they took the alcohol out to make it marketable to kids.
But
And then they took the cocaine out
and
to
the
make it
cola nut.
mass.
Let's not forget the cola nut, which is
There's
also
there's a YouTube channel. I'm like a YouTube nutcase, right? I watch YouTube more than I watch anything else. And there's an Evil Food Supply channel that I really enjoy, and it's like Jake Tran or something is his name, and he had his own channel before he made Evil Food Supply. But that channel talks about the whole history of Coca-Cola from when it had wine and Coke to when it was during World War II they wanted to sell Coke to the Nazis. So while they're over here being like USA in the ads, and then it's like also in Germany they're like we are Fanta. You know what I mean? So
yeah. I mean, if you get deep in the history of a lot of food and spirit and wine and food and beverage,
all roads lead back to Germany.
You don't want to know a lot of the history. A lot of it's stolen too. I mean, the guy that created Coke didn't get any money; he died. And the guy that took the recipe made it big. But
that sounds like McDonald's, right?
Exact same story, exact same thing. Coca-Cola, same way. Topo Chico's now the same way. These are definitely non-bagazo fermentation. You can smell them.
Yeah, not like chicken coopy, like you were talking about. Like
if you just see at the Legos next to them, you'd see the bagazo, because I know at the Legos use bagazo in fermentation. So you would see a massive difference between that and see at the Legos.
well, we're gonna end here, but I'm gonna have to do that right after we turn off these cameras. But I want to say, dude, Ryan, thank you, bro.
My pleasure.
It's never enough time. I'd love to have you back on and continue these conversations. Hopefully, I can go to that more intimate trip to Fortaleza with you guys. Maybe take some cool video and stuff would be awesome to actually apply that. Maybe experience it a little more this time, since I was having a little too much fun last time.
You experienced it. You just don't remember it.
That's true.
You experienced the whole thing.
If only someone else had captured those moments.
You definitely experienced it. I watched it.
But thank you for carrying me through Mexico. Appreciate you, my
Salud,
friend.
brother.
Cheers.